This video is brought to you by mybookie.ag. UFC 295 is here, 2 title fights, very top heavy, a couple decent prospects like Benoit Saint Denis, Diego Lopez, Tabitha Ricci, Mateusz Rebecki, and Nazim Sadikov. Pretty decent prospects, but if we're going to be completely honest here, the light heavyweight title fight between Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira to claim who is the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world, and then an interim heavyweight title fight for the co-main event. It's a new gen fight, Sergei Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall. When's the last time we saw 2 young heavyweights fight for the belt? And going throughout the whole card here, I think Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis should be a very exciting fight. Benoit is much bigger than Frevola is. Frevola has the experience on his side. Even though they have a similar amount of fights, Frevola's been in the UFC a bit longer and has already fought other veterans in the sport. He's improving as a striker, shown in his knockout win against Drew Dober, but then we have Benoit Saint Denis, who ran right through Thiago Moises, showed to be way too physical, way too powerful, hard to take to the ground, but the thing is, Frevola loves to fight against that kind of pressure. He loves to be in a bit of a war, so that's going to be a very interesting fight. I ultimately do pick Benoit Saint Denis to win this. He's also pretty decent on the ground, so he does have multiple ways of attacking Frevola here. I think Diego Lopez is going to beat Pat Sabatini. The kid is really good, man. He has great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's big for the featherweight division. His boxing is looking better. I really like Diego Lopez in that fight. I think they are finally realizing they have something with Diego Lopez. It was a bit of luck, you know? It was like this guy came in on short notice against Movsar Evloev and nobody believed that he had even a chance, and then he performs very well. And now it looks like they're rising him up strategically. I think Steve Erceg, I think that's how you pronounce it, is going to be Alessandro Costa. Both guys are pretty good on the ground. I would say Steve has a superior grappling skill set, but Alessandro Costa hits pretty hard. He definitely is going to have the power advantage when it comes to the stand-up, but I think ultimately Steve should win this fight by a decision. I got Tabitha Ricci against Lupi Godinez, superior grappler overall. I think her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and her judo skills is really going to trump Godinez here. Godinez is going to try to look to beat her on the feet, stop the takedowns, keep it standing as long as possible, but I think Ricci is too experienced when it comes to the grappling. If it gets into the clinch, she could toss her, and may even surprise a lot of people with some of her boxing in this one, but I think ultimately she's going to win this because of the ground game. I got Mateusz Rebecki against Roosevelt Roberts. Roosevelt Roberts is looking better. He has promise, right? He's very talented, and he does have a big height advantage going into this fight. Rebecki's only 5'6". Roberts is like 6'1", 6'2", so he could potentially try to catch him with some high kicks, keep the jab on him, threaten him with those lengthy guillotines. The way he's able to wrap around your neck is pretty crazy with that long reach, but I do not see him dealing well with the pressure. I think Rebecki is going to walk him down, find some big punches, potentially try to take him to the ground and dominate with good heavy top control, landing huge ground and pound shots. Rebecki's a bit of a monster. Nazim Sadikov versus Vyacheslav Borshev is another fight that looks pretty one-sided. I think Nazim Sadikov should be able to beat this. I think he's a bit better than Borshev almost everywhere the fight goes. Jared Gordon versus Mark Madsen. I gotta go with Mark Madsen. I mean, his wrestling is top-notch. That Grant Dawson loss is a bit of a blemish now, knowing how Grant Dawson performed against Bobby Green. But I think ultimately his wrestling overall should be able to get him through someone like Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's more of a striker. I believe he's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under John Danaher, so he can surprise Mark Madsen with some stuff. Perhaps even attack the legs. We know wrestlers don't like that sort of thing, especially Greco-Roman wrestlers like Mark Madsen, who obviously are not going to be used to leg attacks, but it's harder to pull those off in MMA, especially the later the rounds go when both the fighters are a bit slippery. But I think Mark Madsen overall should be able to use his athleticism to his advantage here, use his strength in the clinch, take down Jared Gordon, landing big ground and pound shots and soften him up, trying to also look for some submissions, but I think ultimately he's going to win this by a decision. John Castaneda versus Kong Kyung Ho is honestly one of the better fights on the card. This is a competitive fight that can go either way. I just can never get out of my head the knockout loss Castaneda suffered against Daniel Santos. You guys remember that? Completely crumbled under the pressure, took a lot of damage quickly, and fell to the knees. I think Kong is going to have the experience going into this, and he could win this through a little bit of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage, but both guys are pretty good on the ground. Castaneda has more knockout power. He likes to put pressure on his opponents. He likes to pull counter with this pressure. We know Kong can be a bit reckless with his punches. Not the best form overall, but his goal is to grab a hold of you, toss you to the mat, get full mount, or get your back. So it's a very close fight, but I am going to pick Kong Kyung Ho by a decision win. This is going to be a good one. Joshua Van versus Kevin Boryas. Both predominantly strikers. Joshua Van has more of a marauding, aggressive, brawling kind of style with some decent boxing technique. He knows where to throw punches at times. He knows how to slip even while he's brawling with you. It's gonna be hard to get that kind of fight out of Kevin Boryas though, because Boryas has more of a karate base. Bladed stance, always bouncing and looking for that power right hand from a distance to catch you with, and he has a lot of power in it. But I have seen him get head kicked before, stunned by those, and Joshua Van has a very awkward head kick, can catch you at a very sneaky kind of angle. Boryas is gonna have to be very wary about those head kicks. But the thing is, I can also see Joshua Van walking into one of those right hands. He does have better head movement than Boryas, but Boryas, I believe, has better footwork. So I do think this fight is going to be pretty interesting to watch, but I ultimately do like the more well-rounded striking style of Joshua Van, combined with good pressure and a lot of power for a flyweight. This guy hits very, very hard. I also do have Jamal Emmers as well. And I would ultimately have to say that the prospect of the night is Mateusz Rebecki. I really like this guy. He's a bit short for the lightweight division at 5'6", 5'7", but the guy's stocky. He's like a fire hydrant. Very hard to shake off when he gets a hold of you, and packs so much power. He could give a lot of guys in this division a lot of problems. Very good record too, 17-1. The fighter of the night, I mean, the main attraction of the whole show is of course the biggest star, Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is chasing history in this fight with Jiri Prochazka, trying to become a 2-division UFC champion, while also he was in the past a 2-division Glory Kickboxing World Champion, going down as one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. There's a lot of history in that main event for Alex Pereira. The stake of the night, the fighter that's in hot waters, I didn't really think I would ever have to say this, but Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade is on a 3-loss streak, all finishes. They are against very good fighters, right? Losing to Tatiana Suarez by submission, Yang Xiaonan by knockout. That's a pretty bad one. Yang Xiaonan's a good fighter, but she never knocks out anybody. And to do it against Jessica Andrade in the first round, that's kind of crazy. Erin Blanchfield submitted her too. If Mackenzie Dern beats her, Andrade will be on her 4th loss in a row. That is kind of crazy. But the banger of the night, the most explosive, fun fight on the card, is obviously the main event. Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira is the most bonkers fight of all time. I mean, there's a knockout waiting to happen as soon as that fight starts. Jiri's gonna come out there with all the wildness. Alex Pereira is going to try to control this beast with a left hook to the chin. The fight of the night, the best fight overall, technically, excitement, all of it. I honestly think it's also the main event. The co-main event's not too far away though. Pavlovich and Aspinall are very good technical heavyweights that bring more wrinkles to the game than the main event does with Tom Aspinall's grappling. But I do think that Jiri and Pereira are overall the most skilled fighters on this card, given all they can do with their stand-up. Tom Aspinall and Sergei cannot do what these two guys can do at all. And Jiri's honestly well-rounded, right? He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The guy grappled with Glover very well and then eventually submitted him. But ultimately, we're going to start with Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. Andrade has the power advantage, but it looks like she has declined, right? She's not as good as she used to be. She honestly has never really adjusted much with her striking. She's been kind of the same thing, a little bit minor tuning here and there, right? Throws a little bit more straight rights, throw some more leg kicks to create momentum for her hooks, but she's still kind of doing the same thing as always. Lunges at you with hooks, tries to overwhelm you with her power and her output. She's one of the few fighters that has crazy power as well as never gassing out. She could literally throw power punches for 3 rounds or even 5 rounds maybe and never gas out doing it. Mackenzie Dern is a wild one with her striking. She is not technical on the feet, but she is probably the most technical Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in women's MMA. If this fight goes to the ground, Andrade might be done for. If she's on top of Dern, maybe she could be heavy enough to get out of things, but I ultimately do think that's where the fight is going to go. I am ultimately going to pick Mackenzie Dern to win this by a 2nd round submission. Andrade is going to run right after her, trying to land big punches. I could even see Dern catching her with something very wild and dropping her, as it looks like Andrade's chin is not the same anymore. Or because of Andrade's aggression, I could see Dern clinching up with her and then pulling guard, trying to get a submission, or reversing her, getting on top. Then we go to the co-main event, Sergei Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight title. This is going to be a short fight. Honestly, I think both this and the main event are going to be pretty short fights. One punch from Sergei and this fight could be over. That's not to discredit Tom Aspinall's chin, it's just this Russian hits way too hard. This guy possesses near Derek Lewis and Ngannou kind of power, and Tom Aspinall keeps his chin in the air. That is pretty bad. Aspinall's going to have the speed advantage, which is pretty shocking because Sergei's a very fast heavyweight. Aspinall has good combinations, he likes to blitz you down with the 1-2, he has a good jab, but he is completely outreached. Sergei has a 6-inch reach advantage over him, and we know how powerful this guy's jab is. He has a monstrous jab that puts you on the floor faster than you know it. And I think just that punch alone can change this fight completely. Even if Aspinall is starting to win the fight, one jab and this fight gets turned over. And Sergei's not a wild brawler, right? He understands where to place his shots, he moves away from punches even inside of trades, shown in his Tai Tuivasa fight as well as his Derek Lewis fight. And it would not be shocking to me if Pavlovich pulls away from Tom Aspinall's 1-2, given that Aspinall has to get a lot closer to Pavlovich to land that sort of punch, and Sergei counters him with a jab left hook or even an uppercut, anticipating the takedown from Aspinall. That's the thing that Aspinall has going into this fight. He's well-rounded. He has powerful double legs and what it seems like a dominant Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage over most of the fighters in the weight class. And that's the biggest unknown about this fight. Where is Sergei Pavlovich's takedown defense? If he stops Aspinall's takedown, this could be a very tough fight for Aspinall. The guy has good power though. Aspinall can put down Sergei. It is the heavyweight division. He has a speed advantage. He does throw his punches pretty tight. Could catch him clean. But Sergei did eat some big shots from Curtis Blades as well as Tai Tuivasa and never really got rocked. So ultimately my prediction for this fight, it's very tough to call without knowing where Sergei's takedown defense is, but I think because of such a big power difference between the two, and the fact that Sergei has a 6-inch reach advantage, Tom Aspinall keeps his chin up, I gotta go with Sergei knocking him out. I think Sergei's jab is gonna be big here, and ultimately, I don't see Tom Aspinall dealing well with that power. So I'm going to go with Sergei Pavlovich by first round knockout. And then we go to the main event. Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. I cannot wait for this fight, man. Both guys are knockout artists. Both guys rarely go to a decision. But we have seen that they both do have 5-round cardio. Jiri Prochazka, I believe, has better cardio than Pereira because that fight with Glover was as intense of a light heavyweight fight as you're going to get. And the guy looked good for 5 rounds. He submitted Glover in the final round, and he's never been 5 rounds before that. But I cannot imagine this fight goes that long. The reason for that is both guys have one-strike knockout power, from kicks to punches to knees. These guys can do it all. And I don't think either guy can take too much damage from the other. Pereira has been shown to be hurt multiple times in his career already. Jiri Prochazka has as well. Actually, in every one of Jiri's UFC fights, he has gotten rocked. He got rocked and almost dropped by Volkan Oezdemir. He got rocked by Dominic Reyes and rocked badly by Glover Teixeira. The guy just has impeccable heart, man. Every single time he gets hurt badly and just fights through it. And I think that's going to be a bit of a difference maker when it comes to their quote-unquote durability, I guess. Jiri has a lot of heart. It's going to be tough to put this guy away. But because he is so defenseless sometimes, he almost always has his hands down. He leans forward, exposing his head. He does all the funkiness with the chakra. And when he does it, honestly, it gives opponents openings on him, right? Glover actually took advantage of the fire chakra or whatever, the red chakra, when he grabs his hand. Glover attacked him and rocked him for it. And Pereira trains with Glover Teixeira, knows some things that Glover's going to share with him. And I think Pereira's leg kicks, because of how seamless they are and Jiri puts a lot of weight on his lead foot, is going to cause so much damage. I think if the fight gets out of the first round and Alex Pereira has been leg kicking him, Jiri is done. There's no way he's going to be in good stances after taking even a full round of leg kicks. But he does switch stances, so if he takes a lot of damage on one leg, he can switch to the next stance, and Pereira's going to be chopping at that leg as well. So there's going to be a lot of leg kicks thrown by Alex Pereira, and Jiri's going to try to land that big power hand over those leg kicks early. If he does not knock out Alex Pereira early with that, a lot of his power is going to be taken away because of the leg damage, and he's going to be way more defenseless than he already is, as his footwork is going to be slower, his balance is going to be off, and I think Pereira is going to be landing a lot of good jabs on Prochazka, disrupting him before he backs him up to the cage. And if Jiri gets backed up to the cage, he is a lot easier to fight. The only thing that Alex Pereira has to watch out for is some of the funkiness. Jiri will start running away from you just to lure you in for a right hand, so Pereira's going to be on the hunt as soon as Prochazka gets close to the fence, but he has to watch out for Jiri's traps. He might throw some flying knees, some spinning elbows, spinning back fists, or even big lunging punches, hoping Alex Pereira walks into those. And if one of those lands, this fight could be over. Now, Jiri also does have the takedown threat. He could try to take this fight to the ground and use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage, but his takedowns have never been too great, and Pereira's a big guy who's even defended some of Jan Blachowicz' takedowns. So I don't see Jiri getting him to the ground with a traditional kind of takedown. If he gets him down, it's going to be some sort of scramble or one of them gets dropped or something like that. they lose balance, something weird happens, you know? It's a Jiri fight, so anything weird can happen here. So ultimately, my prediction for the main event, it's very tough to call. I'm nearly 50-50 with these two. I think Jiri's heart, after taking damage, could get him through and knock out Pereira, where we could see a similar scenario where Pereira has Prochazka up against the fence, already damaged his legs, already rocked him in the fight, and he starts pouring it on him. Prochazka's covering up and then finds some big punch, kind of how Adesanya did. I can see that happening for Prochazka, or in his case, maybe a spinning back elbow or something crazy. That can absolutely happen here for Jiri Prochazka. But I think more chances are that Alex Pereira knocks him out. So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira in this fight, and I'm going to go by a second round knockout. I really do want to pick Jiri. For some reason, I do see him taking a lot of damage, weathering the storm, and finding that moment inside of the barrage of Pereira and knocking him out. I don't know why I see that happening. I think Jiri's heart is going to be his main weapon in this fight. The two title fights are pretty close, even on the odds. Nearly a pick'em for both, and if you're confident one way or the other, the best place to go to capitalize on these is mybookie.ag, where the lines are moving. Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira has Pereira as a very slight favorite. I agree with those odds. Either guy can win. Pereira may have a little bit of an advantage, but not enough to be for sure in my opinion. For anybody that is confident, I mean, feel free. These are both very good odds to pick one or the other. Same thing with Tom Aspinall versus Sergei Pavlovich. -120 versus +100. I'm actually going with a slight underdog on this one. As you can see, Mackenzie Dern is a 2-1 favorite. I like Benoit Saint Denis, but a -240 is kind of big. I think a lot of people are underestimating Matt Frevola. This guy's looking very good right now. Expect a tough fight for both fighters. Pat Sabatini is actually the favorite going against Diego Lopez. That's interesting. I like those odds for Diego. Steve is almost a 2-1 favorite. I can agree with that. Lupita Godinez is a favorite over Tabitha Ricci. Then we have the -700. Mateusz Rebecki is by far the biggest favorite on this whole card. 7-1 favorite over Roosevelt Roberts. When you see odds like this, especially with a guy who's about 5 to 6 inches taller, pretty dangerous at some of his submissions and his long strikes, I might put something very small on Roberts. Nazim Sadikov is a slight favorite over Borshev. Jared Gordon's a big favorite over Mark Madsen. Well, this is my dog on the card. I think Jared Gordon's performance against Paddy Pimblett has got a lot of people backing him, but I think people have forgotten how good Mark Madsen's wrestling actually is. And the loss to Grant Dawson, knowing what happened to Dawson against Bobby Green, is not a great thing as well, so I do like the overshadowing of Mark Madsen in this one. I like him as a dog. John Castaneda versus Kong Kyung Ho. Close on the odds. I agree with this. I do pick Kong to win, but it can go either way. Joshua Van is a big favorite, -240. And Jamal Emmers as well is also a big favorite at -260. Very interesting odds. Most of these are close. A lot of good ones to pick here. My locks of the card are Steve Erceg, Mateusz Rebecki, of course, Joshua Van, and I might even pick Mark Madsen as a lock. He's definitely the dog on the card for me. And if you want to capitalize on these odds, make sure to go to mybookie.ag, where MyBookie will match up your first deposit by 50% all the way up to $1,000. So if you put in $1,000, you get $500 on top of that, which is the limit. Or if you put in $10, you get $5 to play with on top of that. And all you have to do is use the promo code WEASEL, that's WEASLE, to take advantage of MyBookie's sign-up offer. It's going to come with the usual rollover requirement. Remember to visit mybookie.ag today, where you can win big. And of course, you can also go with my favorite, the live betting. This has been very good to me so far. I can use my analytical ability with the live bets. After seeing how the fight is playing out for like a round or two, I kind of know what direction the fight is going to go. And you could do that, even challenge your analysis through live betting. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give the video a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, leave your predictions in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.